I wanted to come on and talk about one of the common beliefs that students have when it comes to preparing for their exams. And many students have this misconception of, I will just write what I know. So they might think something like, I'll learn what I can and I'll try to remember that later. Or they might think, I'll just remember what I can and I'll just blurt everything out in the exams. But the problem with this is that this is not a very good, it's not a very good exam strategy, because while students might get good marks doing that, it's not going to help them to get the best of marks that they possibly can. And one of the things that I see a lot is that my students don't get the grades they deserve. So they might be putting in long hours, they might be really focused, or they might even understand in lessons, but they then go and do the test and they don't actually get that grade that they deserve. Now, the problem with this is that it can be very disappointing for the students. It can be very disheartening. So think of amount of times where you have put a lot of effort and a lot of energy into something, and you're expecting to get something back because of how much energy you've put into it, and that didn't happen. It can be very, very frustrating. And also that means it can be quite discouraging, and for a student that can lead to that belief of, I am not very good enough, right? This cycle of I'm not very good enough. Ultimately, what this means is that a child wouldn't reach their potential in exam days, possibly reducing their life opportunities. So instead of thinking that I can just write what I know, I can just remember what I've learned, students need to actually have strategy, because if they don't have strategies and they just rely solely on they'll just write what they know, then this is going to affect their marks, right? So if they're ignoring strategy, for instance, they're not taking into account and they're just focusing on, well, I'll just write what I know, then they're not taking into account the amount of marks to a question, right? They're not using that as a strategy for how they're answering a question. Or what about the type of questions that they are answering? You're going to need different strategy to answer different type of questions. Is it a multiple question? Is it an open extended question? Is it an essay type question, and so on and so forth? What about what the question is asking? So again, you need to be able to identify what the question is asking and answer the question appropriately. Are there also things like keywords, for instance, right? That is a strategy that you need. You need to be able to look at the keywords and answer the question. And I've worked with so many students who have a quick look at the questions, but really miss out. Have a quick look at the question, but actually they then really miss out the keywords. My camera is playing up here. Hopefully it should come back on again. If not, you've got the screen. I might be able to just put on my, let's see. All right, I've got my normal camera, which isn't as clear, but you can still just about see me. So let's dispel the self-belief then of I write what I know, and that would be sufficient. One example, one thing you could do in terms of strategy, instead of really focusing more on strategy and just not what you know, is thinking about the marks. So how much mark is allocated? How many marks are allocated to a question? So for instance, if it's a 2-mark question, don't spend 8 minutes doing that question, because you've spent a long time writing in detail for just a short question, and then you find you're going to run out of time, and that time could have efficiently used in a longer question, right? So having a look at the marks alone would give you so much information. It will tell you, okay, how much information do I need to write, but also roughly how long do I need to be here. Keywords is also something I talked about that students would overlook. Questions don't always give the specific keywords, but based on what the questions are saying, you will know, this is talking about enzymes, right? So I know where the examiner is going here. I will now be able to apply my knowledge with this. Or this is talking about plants, right? Or another thing is just reading properly, because when a question is talking about, say, covalent bonding, then we don't want to be talking about ionic bonding, right? So really just getting a sense of the question and the keyword would help you to know what you should be talking about, right? Not necessarily what you should be writing, but what you should be writing about. Another thing students need to focus on with exam questions is the command word. So really always look at, is the question asking me to analyze? Is it asking me to explain? Is it asking me to describe, and so on and so forth? And then you can answer your question based on those, because once you know what the question is asking you to do, then you can then do that. If it's asking you to explain, then you're going to end up explaining. What about time management? So, look at the time that is, look at your number of marks and use that as an idea of, okay, how much time am I going to allocate to a question? But also you could, in terms of time management, you could also think about, well, which question am I going to start with first? Am I going to start with the easy questions first? Am I going to start with the harder questions first? All of this should be a strategy behind how you excel on exam day, right? So hopefully we're starting to see here that it's not just about, I'm just going to try and remember and regurgitate everything in the exams. And another good one is planning your answers. So before you write your answer, are you having a quick plan? Are you jotting bullet points to the margin in pencil? If it's a relatively big question where it's asking you to evaluate and give your opinions, or look at similarities and differences, are you maybe sketching a quick table to note down the similarities and differences? So essentially, before you write your answer, you need to have planned your answer enough to say, okay, this is going to help me get those marks. Are you doing that? So just to sort of quickly summarize then, many students think I'll write what I know for exams and this will be sufficient. And in doing so, it means that they're actually missing strategy. And by missing strategy, they're not reaching their potential on exam day. So they're not getting as high a mark as they can possibly can. And so what students need to do is move from just I'll write what I know to really developing some of those key strategies to master exam questions, to master exam technique on exam day. So things that I talked about, like managing time, like allocating marks, like planning your answers. Students really need to develop these, and the way they're going to develop many of these is by practicing. So one of the things then is that students typically run out of time in tests and exams. That's one of the things that my students typically say to me, is that they tend to run out of time in their exams. So what I've done is I've created a PDF guide for you, and that PDF guide is on how you can maximize your time in exams and pick up marks. So what are the key things that you need to do to get the best possible marks in exam? And in that PDF guide, you're going to get strategies to pick up marks quickly. You're going to get tips to stay on track and to avoid running out of time. And you'll also get techniques for planning and tackling those long answer questions. So that would be in the description below. Here you can get access to it. If you're watching this on Facebook, in my Facebook group, just put a note. Just put a note there, and we'll give you access to that. And just very quickly, here's an example of one of my students that I was speaking to recently. She's doing maths and science with us. She's improved 3 grades in science in her mock exams. And these are the exact same tools and strategies that we used to teach our students. Okay, I think that is everything for now, and I will see you in the next live. Okay, bye for now.